What's going on, everyone? My name's Eric, and today on the channel we're going to be doing a deep dive on the Warhead mini amplifier. And yes, I did a video a while back on this amp, just unboxing it and getting some initial tones with it. I've now had a good amount of time to live with this amp, and this is where we're going to get my thoughts and opinions on this amp, and you're going to hear this amp in a ton of different contexts, and you're going to learn a little bit more about it. So with all that being said, let's hop right into the demo song. And that was the Warhead mini amplifier in a full demo mix. I was using my Washburn D3 Bolt, Bill Lawrence XL500 in the bridge. Went straight into this. I used an overdrive pedal set real clean just for the solos, just to get a little bit more gain out of this thing. And that's not to say that this amp doesn't have enough gain, that's just how I like my solos. Out of the amp, going into my 2 notes capture, then went into the cab section from Neural DSP John Petrucci, and that is the guitar tone. So now let's learn about this Warhead mini amplifier in some more detail. Now, this name Warhead actually came from the original Randall Warhead. That was the Dimebag Darrell's signature Randall amp when he was still with Randall Amps. Interesting thing about those amps is that those were giant 300 watt monsters respectively, the Randall Warhead and the Warhead X2. And now this is a really shrunk down and compressed version of that. For the most part, this is a 40 watt solid state little beast right here. And the cool thing about all of those Warhead amps is that they were designed and built by basically the same guy, who is David Caron. You might know David from his other company known as KHDK Pedals in collaboration with Kirk Hammett. Before all that, he used to work for Randall. David then brought the Warhead name back and then redesigned the circuit, since I know a lot of people weren't too happy with the original Randall Warhead circuit, and I know Dimebag only used it really for clean tones, but those original Warheads more or less walked so this little thing could run and the new brand could run as a whole. It also goes without saying that Dimebag's longtime guitar tech and very close friend Grady Champion helped redesign this amp in collaboration with David Caron as well. And this amp has also been signed off by Rita Haney and Grady Champion as well, who are a part of the Dimebag estate. So you know, if you are buying these amps, that they are signed off as an officially licensed Dimebag product from the family to the fans. Now, there's a few different models of the Warhead mini amplifier. There is a standard available option that has a different faceplate than this one, and this one here is actually one of 333 limited edition ones, and I was very fortunate to snag one of these up when they went for pre-order. And this one has this really sweet green etched like Tolex on the front here. You got Dimebag's signature in green down here, and if you don't know, green is my favorite color. Flipping it around, you got a lot of green lettering on the back, and I think a lot of that is the same as the standard production model. If you have a limited edition one like I do here, you are going to get a certificate of authenticity signed off by Rita Haney and Grady Champion, which is a really cool memorabilia piece and a cool collector's piece. There's also a super limited version of the Warhead mini amplifier here. There's a blue one and there's a purple one, and I think there's only 33 of each one as well. But regardless of which one you have, whether it's limited or standard production, the internals on all of those amps are the exact same. Now, speaking of the internals, let's get to some specs and features on this amplifier here. Now, as you can see here, this amp is very light. I'm just kind of throwing it around in my hands here. I'm not too sure of the actual weight, but to give you an idea, like, this amp is light. It's a solid state design, just as Dimebag preferred, and you know, that's kind of easier to live with in the current age that we live in. This amp is also 40 watts, which is very usable, as you heard in the demo song, and honestly, if I was to plug this into the right amount of cabinets, have have a good set of stage PAs and mic the whole rig up, I'm pretty sure you could honestly use this as a full live amp with your band if you're going to be playing some gigs. This amp here has a very straightforward control layout here. We got the power switch down here, LED up top, lights up green, looks amazing. We then have master, which is your overall volume control. We then have your presence control, a little bit extra high-end frequencies. We have our treble, middle, bass controls, real easy to lay out, and we have our overall gain control, and then we have the input, which is where your guitar goes, and then Dimebag's signature right up top. Looks really sick. Flipping the amp around, we got this handle on the back here, so you can just kind of grab it, which is kind of nice. I mean, the amp's light. It's not like you really need to worry about like pulling your back out by moving this thing. Tolex feels really good. Kind of has like a bit of a gator skin look and probably not a feel. I've never been up that close to a gator. Probably shouldn't be anyways. Going to the back features here, we have an effects loop here. Very good effects loop. It feels really good, sounds really good. It's not like some other effects loops I've used on more expensive amplifiers that just kind of, make the tones sound like there's a blanket in front of the amp when you use the effects loop. So it sounds really good. It's a really clean effects loop. I actually used the MXR flanger doubler in the effects loop of this amplifier when I covered the song Hellbound by Pantera. I'm going to leave a link to that so you can hear how great all of that sounds together with this amp. We have the 24 volt power supply right here. There is a proprietary power supply that comes with it. That's the one you use. And the last feature right on the back is the impedance selector. And the cool thing about this is that it automatically detects whatever impedance you're running. So if your cabinet is 8 ohms, the amp figures it out and it will go to 8 ohms, 16, 4 ohms, whatever it is. Even if you're running more cabinets that have the same impedance, the amp will figure it out, which is, again, that's a really sweet thing. I see this feature done up on a lot of bass amps, but not a lot of guitar amps. So real cool to see that on this amplifier as well. So now we're going to plug right into the Warhead, and I'm going to adjust all the controls on their own so you can hear what they all do individually. And this is going to give you an idea of what it's like to plug into the Warhead for the very first time.
If you've got an issue, here's a tissue.
So now at this point, we're going to change up the guitar so you can hear how different guitars will sound through this amp. And this is so we can all hear how this amp can get more than just the Dimebag sound. Alright, so at the end of the day, what do I think about this amp here? Now, yes, this is a signed-off Dimebag product, and I do talk to David fairly regularly. I've talked to Grady and I've talked to Rita. I'm going to be as unbiased as I can. Like, I paid money for this. This was not sent to me. Honestly, I think it's a great amp. Yes, it has a very simple control layout, and there's nothing wrong with that. This amp is basically a plug-in-and-play Dimebag tone. Honestly, like, I put all the controls, like treble, middle, bass, up at 5, and the presence up at 5. Master set to tase. I kind of pinned the gain, and that all sounded great. I maybe moved the controls up to 6, and it sounded great. I put an overdrive pedal in front of it. Sounded great. And put a noise gate in the loop just to quiet it all up. It sounded great. The amp is a little bit noisy on its own, especially when you really turn it up in the room, but again, a noise gate can just fix that in 4-cable method. I feel the amp has a good amount of features for what it is and for the price point here. There's no foot switchable clean channel, which is, you know, at the end of the day, for what this amp is supposed to do and the purpose that it is built for, that really doesn't bother me because I like my cleans super pristine and super done up with delay, chorus, and reverb and things like that. This amp is just like a plug-in and play, sound great, amazing, out of the box, distortion tone. I'm sure if you roll your guitar volume down, go to the neck pickup, maybe turn the gain down on this amp as well, you could probably get some passable clean tones, but again, this is purpose-built for distortion, as, you know, Dimebag was known for his distorted tone, not really for his clean tone, so keep all that in mind when you are thinking about maybe buying this amp here. I also really like the auto-selecting impedance on the back here. Again, I mentioned that was very common on bass amps, and there was nothing like that on guitar amps, and this is honestly the first guitar amp I've seen with this kind of technology in, even though it's been around for a while, so yeah. This is really sweet. I don't have to think about plugging into the right cab and setting the ohms and everything. The amp just figures it out, and yeah, that's a really nice feature as well. I can plug in and get a great tone without using a boost. I just have to crank the gain, maybe adjust the treble presence in the mid a little bit, and it feels and sounds like the amp is boosted. The only other amp I've had that same experience with is literally like an Omega or my Rev Generator 120, and those amps are well into the $3,000 range, whereas this amp is around like the $500 to $700 range. And yeah, keep that in mind. If you're just going to be using it in the studio, like, maybe this is a bit more budget friendly in my opinion. You can get a lot of non-Pantera Dimebag related tones with this. Sure you can if you put the right speaker in front of it, you put the right guitar, the right pickup, you need to do all that. Yeah, you're gonna get some Dimebag tones. But if you use this on its own, as I demoed with other guitars through other cabinets, like, you can get some really great tones with this. This is a solid amp. It's signed off with people who were with Dimebag when he was still with us and who want to keep the spirit alive. So consider that if you are a Dimebag fan and you want to pay tribute to him and you're looking for a really sweet amp as well. And that's going to do it for today's video on the Warhead Mini Amplifier. Let me know all thoughts and opinions down below, and especially if you learned something new, I always love hearing that from you guys. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I have tons more Dimebag related content, and there's going to be tons more videos with this guy going forward. And if you are a returning subscriber, make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that I upload. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.